Hello, for this video, I'll be going through the Prelim paper 3 in 2021. So for this particular Prelim paper, when I set it, I actually wanted to throw you off with a new problem, something that you have not seen it before. So if you look at question 1, you will see this very weird setup, and I think it is the first time that you are actually calculating power. So I feel that for question 1, it will be a challenge to some of you, especially if you are not the type that can keep a cool head in a very stressed environment. So for this question, it is actually taken out from the June Cambridge paper, and it is actually a full-blown, initially it is a full-blown practical paper, meaning that you need to do graphing and all that. And according to their markers report, actually they also commented that students get very confused by the number of parameters that they have to measure. So to summarize, what are the parameters that you need to measure is, of course, the length that you are peeling off, and then of course you have to calculate the power, meaning that it involves the force, which is being reflected by the amount of extension that the spring produce as you pull it along. And of course, because you are calculating power, you would also have a timer. So just by looking at the diagram, you can see that there are actually 3 parameters already. And when it comes to planning, then of course it will be, you will need to take a pause and ask yourself, which parameter should be the independent variable, which parameter should be the dependent variable, and so on and so forth. So for the purpose of this video, I'll be focusing more on the thinking question, because when I mark your paper, most of you have memorized the precision table and you have applied your precision rule correctly. Most of you lost the mark in questions that requires you to think on the spot for you to give suggestion. And many of you have done question 3 very well. So I'll be using this video to share with you the thought processes when you approach the planning question. As for question 2 and question 3, I'll be posting another go-through video so that for those who wants to skip ahead, you can skip ahead. So this particular video will focus on paper 1 and how to approach the planning question. So before I begin, let's do a quick recap on what you have done, because some of you may have already forgotten. So basically, for question 1, I give you a very simplified instruction. I remove all the detail and you need to figure out most of the stuff on your own. So first, you of course need to secure the paper down, and you are asked to stick a piece of scotch tape on the graph paper, and you are going to use a string over here to create a hook by yourself, and then after that you are going to pull on the spring to see how much force is required for the scotch tape to come off from the paper, right? And the amount of extension that the spring produce will give you an indication of how much force is required. So let's skip ahead. For part I, it is a question that many of you find it challenging, and many of you have lost the marks here. The question actually asks you to calculate power, and there is no specific instruction asking you to change the units, especially for distance. So if you look at this equation, it is basically your power equals to energy over time equation, whereby the energy involved is the work done by you pulling the spring. So this work done is given by the force acting on the spring multiplied by the distance that the force has been acting on. So here your F is already in Newton, and your time is in seconds. So these 2 parameter has no issue. But many of you have forgotten that the D, the distance travel, has to be in meter. So if you could recall that in the 2020 O level paper 3. This is the markers report. There is actually a similar question and we have did it in class, but many of you have forgotten. If you refer to the 2020 prelim paper, your question 2 part C, this is the markers report. Here it says many candidates didn't use the values in the equation like what we did, the power equation, that produce answer with the correct unit, length and meter and mass in kilogram. So what does this mean? This means that Cambridge actually expect you to know what you need to use when a familiar equation is given. So what is the meaning of familiar equation? Like the one that I gave you, the power formula. It is something that is in your syllabus and you should know what kind of unit is given. But of course, if they give you something like a formula that you have never seen before, like something like that, then of course we won't expect you to know what kind of SI you need to put in, what kind of unit that you should use. But for equations that you are expected to know, like this one, the power formula, then you are expected to know that, oh, I need to change the distance into meter first. So when you want to change cm into meter, you must obey the precision rule as well. So for example, if in your cm, the value that you are getting is maybe 4.2 cm, when you change it to meter, right, you also need to respect the precision rule. So I'm going to skip ahead. The precision rule here is that, in short, you will follow list SF lah. Okay, this is the easiest way to remember. Okay, the reason why is because what you are doing when you change cm to meter is that you are going to divide this by an exact number, by a factor of 100. So after you divide by a factor of 100, you will get something like this, 1 2. Right, what does it mean is that you are still able to measure up to 1 mm. So this is your least confident figure, right? You from this reading, you would know that, oh, okay, I am confident up till 1 mm, correct? 0.1 cm is 1 mm. So after you change it to meter, actually your confidence level didn't drop, neither does it increase. So in your new reading in meters, how confident are you about this reading? Well, you are confident up till 1 mm, right? So because of that, you will have a 3 dp kind of reading. Okay, so when you are converting things like that, if you have no mental capacity to understand one more piece of content, just remember when you change unit, it's least SF. Okay, it is not least dp. So that is for your I.